Greetings, I am Sensei Mui, Shaku Mui Shinshi. Interesting name, that. Anyway, so those of you who don't know me, and this is your first time on this merry-go-round, 46 years ago I was ordained as a Buddhist monk in the Theravadan tradition. And I was a monk for 7 years. I was a Thai monk and studied with Ajahn Chah for some time. He wasn't the one that ordained me. I was ordained before I went to see him. But he was doing some incredible thing with Westerners, and I thought, well, why not go check that out? So I did. Anyway, when I came back to the United States, there was a spell where I searched. I'd heard about this Mahayana thing and I wanted to find out about it. So I studied Tibetan Buddhism, ordained and trained in that for a period, Soto Zen, lineage of Suzuki, Tendai, lineage of Tathagata and Sakura. And then I eventually ran into this guy named Oakley, who was in Cleveland at a Jodo Shinshu place there, and later on he became the bishop of the Chicago Buddhist temple, or excuse me, Midwest Buddhist temple in Chicago, which is a large and old Jodo Shinshu place, and now I believe he's in Los Angeles or San Francisco or someplace, like running the entire Buddhist churches of America. So I'm really happy about that. But he's the one that gave me this name, Shaku Mui Shinshi. And he said it was for priests ordained in Jodo Shinshu. Anyway, I studied with him for a while and eventually wandered off into my own thing. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm with Hongaku, the Hongaku Buddhist community, the Hongaku Institute for Buddhist Studies. And Hongaku is kind of an interesting thing. It goes all the way back to Ashwagosha and the awakening of faith in the Mahayana. And so he was the one that coined the term Hongaku, which today we take to be original enlightenment, which he took to be the nature of mind before defilement. And he took Mahayana a little bit differently than how we treat it today, which is kind of an interesting thing. So, why am I talking about all this? Well, I'm talking about all this to get to a different point. Not all lines are linear and direct. So Ashwagosha either taught Nagarjuna, the so-called second Buddha, or he taught Nagarjuna's teacher, which is pretty much the same thing. And this is how we get the Madhyamaka middle way school. This is how we get Mahayana. This is how we get, which actually meant faith in Buddha nature at the time that Ashwagosha was alive and coining these terms. And we get the whole mishmash of politics that we have today, unfortunately. So what seems to be happening is something that was not talked about a whole lot after the Kamakura period of Japan, and that is the idea of Mappo. Mappo, or how did the Chinese say it? Let me look. The Chinese said it Mo Fa. Anyway, that refers to the end of the law, the end of Dharma, essentially. And this was sort of an apocalyptic view of life, the universe, and everything. It had considerable currency in Tendai in Japan during the Heian period. And it was believed that following a 500-year period of the true law, which was espoused by the Buddha, and this was called a period of Shobo, would follow a 1,000-year period of simulated doctrine. So roughly around the year 0, Common Era, from the death of Buddha to the just after the Common Era, probably about the time of Nagarjuna, there would be this period of true Dharma that would be taught. Then would come a period of simulated Dharma called Zobo. And this would be the spread of Buddhist teachings, belief in Buddhism, but the teachings themselves would begin to weaken, begin to become somehow diluted and degrade and eventually decay. And many of the people of the Heian period believed that they had entered into the third stage of Buddhism called Mappo, and that would be a period that would continue for indeterminate length, where Dharma teachers would become fewer and fewer, although Buddhism would become more and more popular, but people that were teaching Buddhism were not the kind of folk that you would invite to dinner. So this is what was supposed to have occurred. And interestingly enough, it's alluded to in the Lotus Sutra. And it became a very big deal in Japan. Now, there are two ways of looking at this right off the bat. And like most things in Buddhism, there are at least two ways of looking at everything. One is looking at things from the view of transcendent reality, and the other from the view of conventional reality. In this case, there's a social aspect regarding Dharma, that where Dharma would become more and more diluted as time went on, more and more adherence to form, more and more adherence to lineage, more and more adherence to appearances over substance. My lineage founder can beat up your lineage founder. My way or the highway kind of Buddhism, where we get into what we used to call Dharma fascists, Dharma police. If it was really bad, we call them Dharma Nazis. And this sort of thing would happen all the time in monasteries and centers around the world. And it continues to happen. And there's no doubt in my mind that this is an old problem. Even in the Buddha's day, he somehow alludes to it. When Shinran Shonin was still alive, spreading the word about Shin Buddhism, the Pure Land True Doctrine school of Buddhism, there was, even in his lifetime, he had to contend with it. And that was, 1,000 years ago, something like that. So it's a common problem. We find it even today. I mean, pardon the pun, Lord knows that Christianity is not practiced today as it was 2,000 years ago, if it was indeed practiced 2,000 years ago. Okay, let's say 1,700 years ago. It's a different church. Buddhism is a different Buddhism today than it was during the time of the Buddha. We're not even sure what the Buddha said. We don't know what the earliest canon actually looks like. There are some parts of the Mahayana canon which are older than the Pali canon. The Pali canon was put together by a committee. We know that we don't know. We assume that the jokes that we find in the Pali canon are original words of the Buddha, because, committees just aren't that funny. And when they put things together, there's usually not much to laugh about, except maybe the end result. So this is the situation we find ourselves in. We know the essence of what the Buddha taught, but we don't know the words he used exactly. We know the words that were used by the people that wrote them down. And we know that these words had extraordinary significance, or else they wouldn't have been used. Now, about 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they started translating Buddhism, both the Pali and the Sanskrit, into English, French, German, primarily English and German. And words that were meaningful in the context of, say, Anglican society of late 18th century England have different meanings then than they do today. The word suffering, for instance, didn't mean excruciating pain in the 17th and 18th centuries. If it did, then the King James Version of the Bible would not have Jesus saying things like, "Suffer the children to come unto me." God, that's grotesque. If suffering meant then what it does today. Actually, back then it was more like inconvenience, or interrupt the children and have them come unto me. Suffering meant an interruption at that time. So when we talk about the Four Noble Truths and we translate the word as dukkha, or translate the word dukkha as suffering, today it really doesn't make sense in light of what the Buddha says. Birth, aging, sickness, death, these are not excruciating pains in and of themselves, but they do interrupt the flow of life. So maybe translating the word dukkha in the 17th century or 18th century as suffering made sense then. It does not make sense now because language evolves just like everything else. So I said all of that to get to this point. When the Buddha and early Buddhists of any of the schools of Buddhism that were around for the first 500 years of the Buddha's life, any one of the multiple canons that were available at that time, when they are speaking about mind, and it's kind of evident, at least to me anyway, and that's an opinion, I'm allowed to have it, don't take it as gospel. It seems to me that the Buddha himself would have used this analogy of mind. Mind is like this monkey, hence the term monkey mind. But the monkey isn't just your ordinary average woodland type monkey. This monkey has been humanized. This monkey is a thief. He clutches at things. He's like a kleptomaniac. This monkey is not just that. This monkey is crazy, neurotic, insane. Not only is this monkey crazy, neurotic, insane, and greedy, but this monkey is also drunk. This monkey is shit-faced. This monkey is out of control. And not only is this monkey a kleptomaniac, crazy and neurotic, drunk, but he also got stung by a bee. I think the actual text says scorpion. So he's pissed off. So you've got this crazy, greedy, pissed off, shit-faced monkey running your life. Does that make you happy? You are in your own Mappo stage of existence, your own Dharma ending stage of existence. How would you like to change that and go back to Shopo, true Dharma, true reality? The monkey is chasing after fantasies. Here's how it works. This is how they used to catch monkeys in Thailand. They would find a coconut. They would drill 2 holes in it. A little larger one on the top, a smaller one on the bottom. They would drain the liquid out of it. They'd put a rope through it. The rope had a knot in it, so when it went through the bigger hole, it would not come out of the smaller hole. They would stake the rope end to the ground. They'd fill the coconut up with candy, hard rock candy, because like any drunk, the monkey is into sweets, right? So the monkey goes in there, he says, oh, there's sugar candy in there. He sticks his hand into the coconut, grabs the candy, and can't get his fist back out. The hand slides in pretty easily, but the fist won't come out. And then all they have to do is walk up, take the rope, take the coconut, sling coconut, monkey and all, over their shoulder and walk off. They don't have to tie the monkey down. They just walk away with him, because the monkey is not going to let go of the candy. So anybody can take him anywhere. And he winds up in the Chicago Zoo somewhere, one of the Chicago zoos. And this is how you catch a monkey. Your mind works the same way. It sees something it's interested in. It might be internet porn. It might be some beautiful person walking down the street. It might be the desire to have this tasty food. It might be the desire to watch TV. And then it stays there. And it keeps going back to that, because that's sweet stuff. And no matter what you do, you go back to whatever it was that was glittering and seemed like gold. This is the monkey mind. The monkey mind needs to be tamed. There is no way to go through life successfully, go through your life in an extraordinary way, unless you tame the monkey. Somewhere along the line, you have to stop feeding your inner chimpanzee. You have to become fully human. This is the way to lead an exceptional life. How do you do that? One way of doing that is through meditation. Matter of fact, that's probably the easiest, simplest, most effective way of doing that. Seriously. Think about it. Meditation is a way of exercising the brain. You don't have to go online and play these weird video games, because that doesn't exercise the mind. It trains the mind to do one thing. That is, play the video game. It doesn't holistically approach mental activity. Meditation does. You're in your own Dharma ending stage. Somewhere in life, you've lost touch with reality. Things as they are. You might have lost touch with it 6 months after you were born. You might have lost touch with it when you were in kindergarten or in high school. But something caused you to stop your maturity, stop your learning process, stop actualizing who you really are, and you became somebody wearing a mask. We call that mask ego. And it's no different than the mask that Tibetan shamans or African shamans wear. It's something we put over our face to disguise our true identity. This is the job of ego, to hide who we are. Eventually, we start believing we are that ego. We are that drunken, pissed off, shit-faced monkey. And we start behaving accordingly. Now we're in our own personal Dharma ending age. And that will last for an indeterminate length of time. If you believe in reincarnation, this could last billions of years. Or you can end it now. But it takes practice. The simplest form of meditation, and there are many. I teach many forms of meditation. This one is erroneously marketed as mindfulness meditation. It's not really mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation is a complex, very lengthy, very in-depth probe of the reality you are experiencing at any given moment. This is more along the lines of shamatha, tranquility meditation. Interesting that the first part of that word, shama, means harmony or attunement. Sama was a tuning instrument that people used to use during the Buddha's day to tune their musical instruments. It was sort of a pitchfork, tuning fork sort of a thingy. I'm not really sure how it worked, but it had a lot of notes on it. And it was used to pretty much for the lyre, guitar-y type thing, sitar type instrument. And the second part of it has to do with knowledge. So it's kind of like saying knowledge of harmony or harmonious knowledge. Knowledge which is in tune. And this is what shamatha meditation is. Later on it took on the connotations of tranquility. But what it basically means is you can sit, whether in a lotus or half lotus position, on a chair, on the bus, on a train, anywhere, and just be comfortable in the moment, just being aware of what's going on. It's like being on a hillside watching clouds as they go by. And all you're doing is watching the clouds. You're watching the formations. You go, oh, that's an interesting formation. But you're just watching. You're not talking about it in your mind. That's called thinking. So you're not thinking, you're just being aware. Oh, there's a cloud. And you watch them form, and you watch them dissipate. Maybe you might pretend that you're causing them to dissolve or something. But that's what's going on. And a thought is sort of like those clouds going by. In this form of meditation, you're the atmosphere. You're not the cloud. The ego mistakes itself for the cloud. That's why the Buddha could say that it's all an illusion. The cloud is real. You being the cloud is not real. That's the illusion. So this is that kind of meditation. It's very relaxing because you're not thinking. There is no doing. The Chinese call that wu wei. The Japanese call it mui. No effort, not doing. And it's simple awareness. This simple awareness is what Ashwagosha, the fellow I was talking about way at the beginning, about 20 minutes ago, referred to this as Hongaku. Awareness. The awareness that is there before thoughts cover it up. Later on, that became called original enlightenment. Just seeing things as they are, without the clouds obscuring the sun. When we go through life this way, the things that we used to think were important aren't important anymore. Many of us in the West have a very, very negative attitude, especially here in the United States and presumably in Great Britain, presumably in Brazil, presumably in Canada. There's a sense of negativity about life. And there's no reason for a person living in a first world country like the United States to feel negative about life. Life's pretty damn nice here. But we feel things are wrong. The world is in pain. Crime is out of control. Well, of course crime seems out of control. Of course the world seems in pain. When that's all you hear about. We don't hear a lot about the good stuff. We watch TV, we go to the internet, and things that are emotional and passionate and have shock value, that's all you see. You don't see the innate tranquility of life. During the Vietnam conflict, I was there as a combat medic. I was always amazed at many of the Vietnamese people I knew who could find tranquility in the midst of that conflict, who could go on about their daily life with the war in the background. For us, the war was in the foreground. Very different attitude. It's a very different attitude to assume a posture of all the storms and vicissitudes of life. That's just background noise. That's not in front of me. What's in front of me is happiness. What's in front of me is security and contentment. Emotional security. It doesn't matter what's going on in my life. I can maintain emotional security, mental stability, and happiness in spite of what's going on. I don't have to be crazy about it. I don't have to be jumping for joy because I find out one day I have cancer or my dog gets run over by a car or my wife leaves me or something like that. I don't have to be ecstatic about it. But I can be okay with myself in spite of those things. And this kind of meditation helps with that project, helps with that view. So we sit and we're in total awareness. And this doesn't mean that every time you sit, it's going to be, oh, wow, I'm calm and happy. No, because thoughts are going to arise. That's what the brain is made for. It's a thought-creating machine. And this thought-creating machine is not who we are. And it will create thoughts, and you can be sitting there meditating, and all these crazy, absurd thoughts come up. And say you committed to a 20-minute meditation period, and all you did was have these thoughts come up. And you say to yourself, wow, that was a terrible meditation period. No, that was a good meditation period. You were very successful at sitting for 20 minutes watching your thoughts. If you weren't watching your thoughts, you wouldn't have known they were there. So you did what you were supposed to do. You've had a successful meditation. And shamatha is not going to work overnight. It could take months before you get to the vipassana part, the insights that come along with tranquility. Could take years. But you have to make a commitment. You have to say, okay, for 30 days, I'm going to sit for 20 minutes every day. No matter what, no days off, no vacation, no excuses, 20 minutes. That leaves you 23 hours and 40 minutes to do whatever it is that you're going to do. Just 20 minutes. A lot of us that meditate regularly meditate for an hour a day, minimum. And that's formal meditation. That's not regular practice, going out, doing this, that, or the other thing, and being aware and mindful of what it is that we're doing. This is just sitting. The trick is, in order to get it to work and do extraordinary things in your life, is when you make your commitment, you can't break your commitment. You've got to do it every day. And not just for 20 minutes. Eventually, you're going to have to extend that to 30 minutes. And then eventually 40 minutes. And then, maybe an hour a day. But you have to make that commitment. This is what I'm going to do. And you can come up with excuses like, oh, I can't concentrate. I just can't sit for 20 minutes because it's just too hard to concentrate every day for 20 minutes. Oh! That's like a fat guy saying he's too fat to go to the gym. That's when you're supposed to go to the gym. If you can't concentrate, learn how to concentrate through meditation. Because you're exercising the entirety of your brain. It gets stronger. It becomes more aware. You become more at peace and happier. You get to see things as they really are, not as you imagine them to be. Because we imagine things very negatively. That's what our culture does. It causes us to think in groups, groupthink, herd mentality. We start buying into the commercialism of a first world country. And we stop thinking for ourselves because we're thinking too much. We become competitive instead of cooperative. We become part of the herd rather than being ourselves. And just sitting in this mental relaxation, creating a mental environment of peace and stability, of awareness, of seeing things as they are, as they arise, suddenly, eventually, the awareness also comes to us that nothing is the way we thought it was. And the only reason things appear the way they do is because of the way we think of them. It's not how we thought it was, yet it's the way we think of them. And this is what causes the interruptions in our lives. That nice, steady state of peacefulness and calm suddenly becomes a roller coaster of ups and downs. And we think that's normal? That's neurotic behavior. But somehow that became normal. 50 years ago, well, actually a little earlier than that, when I was in, or later than that, when I was in college, passive-aggressive behavior was considered to be a neuroses. Yeah, it was actually on a list of neuroses when I first studied psychology back in the 70s. Today, it's a strategy. Times have changed because now we accept neurotic behavior as the norm. Because there's a lack of peace within our hearts. There's a peace festival coming up here in Evanston where I'll be talking sometime in September. Oh my gosh, it's 2 weeks away. I better prepare something. And somehow we have the mistaken notion that peace is the absence of violence. That is so high school simplistic. The absence of violence is unreasonable. It's not the way of nature. We look into nature, there's an incredible amount of violence in it. Big bugs eat little bugs. Cats eat cicadas and mice. Hawks and owls eat cats. It's a chain of things that go on. And they all seem pretty violent. People eat meat. We grow animals so we can kill them and eat them. How violent is that? So to say peace is the absence of violence, what, we all become vegetarian? We stop spiders from eating flies? What? Peace is a culture. Peace is something that happens inside the individual, and then it is translated into action, compassionate action, tempered by wisdom. This is peace. It's something greater than just the absence of violence. The absence of intentional violence toward one another ought to be part of it. Don't get me wrong here. But that's not what peace is. In and of itself, peace is a mental culture. And we started right here. We started with meditation on the cushion so we can see what is real and stop giving in to our lurid imagination. It's time for the monkey to sober up, to calm down. Let go of the candy. Get the hand out of the jar, out of the coconut. Go home, visit his friends. Talk to his spouse. Play with the kids. Get in touch with himself. Then he'll find peace. Thank you. Good night.